According to the Polish gaming site CD Action, Piranha Bytes has reportedly shut down as of the end of June 2024, per a Piranha Bytes employee who had been in contact with CD Action. Responsible for their work on the Gothic, Risen, and Elex series of games, which dates all the way back to their original release in 2001, the small German developer's future had been in question since January of this year, when eagle-eyed fans noticed a series of concerning trends, including the sudden halt of new videos on their YouTube channel, which had previously been consistently uploaded every single week, their official website apparently shutting down to only display their company logo and legal information and nothing else, and the apparent removal of their latest game, codenamed Wiki6, from the official German funding website. With news circulating about their publisher's parent company, Embracer Group, attempting to sell off development studios in advance of a massive round of budget cuts and numerous studios being laid off left and right, Piranha Bytes was one of the studios suspected to be on the chopping block, with their work on the presumed Elex 3 being still in early development and having not had a very profitable return on Elex 2, which released in March of 2022 to mixed reviews and lower than expected sales. It was later reported that the Piranha's longtime CEO, Bjorn Pankratz, had already left the studio in late 2023, with the rest of the remaining employees receiving notice of termination letters from the publisher, THQ Nordic, owned by Embracer Group. The remaining Piranhas remained hopeful that they could survive, having apparently shifted their production from the presumed Elex 3 towards pitching themselves and their projects to land with another publisher. Some members of their fandom indicated a willingness to contribute to a crowdfunding campaign if necessary, however, no such endeavor was ever pursued by Piranha Bytes. After a few months of radio silence, the terms of their existing contract under Embracer Group came to expire at the end of June with no word of their future, accompanied by an anonymous employee showing pictures of their deserted studio office, as many employees had already reportedly left to seek new employment with other studios. Pankratz and his wife, Jenny, have since announced the formation of a new indie studio under the name Pithead Studio, but it's unclear how many former Piranha Bytes employees will join them or what the scope of their projects is likely to be. There's still been no official word of Piranha Bytes' closure from current CEO Michael Ruva, though CD Action's source speculates that he and the rest of the Piranhas may be content to let the company go out peacefully and quietly. This is the most news we've had about this situation in over 5 months, and although this news is technically not official, it's hard to see Piranha Bytes surviving beyond this. You'd think if another publisher were interested in picking them up, we'd have already heard about it by now, and that if they still had plans for their future, someone would have come out to deny these reports or add new context to the story. With what may only be a skeleton crew of remaining employees holding onto the official company name, and with seemingly no active work happening on any future games, it would seem awfully difficult to keep that ship afloat for much longer. Although this comes as sad news, the reality of the situation is that the Piranha Bytes that made the beloved Gothic games has been dead in a manner of speaking for a while now. Hardly any of the key minds that had worked on the original Gothic games in the late 90s and early 2000s had stayed with the company for very long past Risen 1 in 2009, and basically all of their games since Gothic 2 in 2003 had been but a pale shadow of what the studio was once capable of, only ever rarely providing mere glimpses of some semblance of the magic that enraptured so many of us with their original games. I have a lot of fond, nostalgic memories of those early games, with Gothic 1 and 2 being some of the most influential games in developing my personal gaming taste during some of my most formative teenage years. Piranha Bytes set the bar so high with their fascinating world design, rewarding exploration, immersive atmosphere, realistic NPCs and creature behaviors, compelling challenge, respectful lack of hand-holding, engaging combat system, intriguing quest design, practical RPG mechanics, and satisfying progression, that it basically ruined all other similar types of games for me, because nothing could ever come close to matching the same level of satisfaction and enjoyment that I got from Gothic. While everyone else was fawning over the likes of Morrowind and Fable, I was left feeling subtly underwhelmed and wishing I could be playing a new Gothic game instead. I was heartbroken for the longest time when it seemed like the Night of the Raven expansion was unlikely to ever make it to the US, to the point that I was even looking into importing a German copy and playing with a translation dictionary handy so I could hopefully understand enough to get through it. It's no exaggeration to say that these games shaped who I am as a gamer, with them being some of the first games that I felt truly, deeply passionate about at a point in my life when I was becoming old enough to buy my own games and really hone in on my own unique palette. Their strong influence became a quintessential part of my gaming identity, not just in terms of defining the kinds of games I like, but also the standard against which I would judge other games. The fact that Gothic never received much media coverage in the US and flew so far under the radar also lent it a more personal connection as being my game, a game that I had a special connection with that no one else had, which made it feel all the more unique and endearing to me. The high that I achieved from those first 2 Gothic games was so high that I became a loyal fan of Piranha Bytes for the next 20 plus years, buying every game they released with almost religious fervor on the pure hope that they'd ever release another game as good as Gothic 1 and 2. Unfortunately, time would come to prove that they hit their high watermark with those games in 2003, with Gothic 3 being an unfinished, technical mess of a game that may have been conceptually flawed from the very beginning, Risen 1 being a decent return to form but as more of a mere appetizer than a full meal, Risen 2 being a major stylistic departure with a ton of technical problems and all-around poor execution, Risen 3 being somewhat acceptable but still pretty lackluster and largely forgettable, Elex 1 having a lot of really unique and compelling new features but while being extremely janky and unpolished, and Elex 2 not taking the proper steps forward to truly improve on Elex 1's foundation, somehow even managing to get worse in some respects. So after almost 20 years of mostly underwhelming disappointment, with only like 1.5 or maybe 2 semi-bright spots in that run of 6 games, throughout which they had demonstrated time and time again that they don't really understand what it was that made those first 2 games so beloved, and that they're also incapable of learning the proper lessons they should from their missteps, while also harboring a weird aversion to sticking with the things that work, I'm really not too upset over the prospect of not getting any more Piranha Bytes games in the future. After all, I was so fed up with the creative decisions behind Elex 2 that I declared in my review that I might even consider skipping Elex 3 altogether. Now it appears for the time being that the decision has been made for me, as it's almost certain at this point that Piranha Bytes will not be able to resurrect itself, and even if they did, it would be in name only. By this point, we're now twice removed from that name having any real weight to it, given how many of the old guard had already left the studio over the last 15 years, and with so many of the new guard leaving in the wake of the recent Embracer fiasco. So even if they did find some miraculous way to survive, I wouldn't have anywhere near the same level of expectation from them. In a way, this news feels like finally getting out of a bad marriage, where once there used to be sincere love and affection, there had become complacent contempt with increasing amounts of concern and disappointment. After a certain point, I was basically just sticking around out of a sense of loyalty and obligation, not really enjoying being around them anymore as their behavior had clearly changed and they no longer showed the same level of commitment or passion that they had at the start. Every so often they'd break my heart with some kind of erratic decision and self-destructive behavior, but would then reel me back in by promising to change their ways and showing signs of what made this relationship so special in the first place, only to then relapse back into more self-destructive behavior. They were too stubborn to seek help and get things back on track, and I was too stubborn to ever leave them. In the end, it took an act of God to finally get us out of this situation. And although I'm sad to see it end with no hope of ever getting back to the way things were, at the same time it's also liberating to no longer feel stuck hopelessly hoping for something that, in all likelihood, was never going to happen. Still, even during the bad times, there was an unmistakable charm to their presence that I'm legitimately going to miss, and I'll always reflect fondly on those early days and the fun times we had together. So at this point, regardless of whatever happens next, I just want to say thank you to everyone at Piranha Bytes who put their heart and soul into these games over the last 25 plus years. Your games may not have always been great, but they filled a void that no other developer has ever come close to filling, and I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to experience the journey alongside you. Every one of you played some role in making these games so unique, and they will always hold a special place in my heart. I wish you all the best and hope you find continued success in your careers. May your legacy live on and serve as an inspiration to others, that we might one day see more Piranha Bytes-like games in the future.